Hello and welcome to this Android event tutorial brought to you by North Border Software. My name is Gary and this is part 4 of the series where we're looking at how to work with Google Maps. In this next set of 2 tutorials, what we're going to do is look at how to add markers and also the FusedLocation API. The reason we need to use the FusedLocation API will become apparent later on. But really what we'll do at the moment is just get the initial code in to actually set a marker onto the map. We're going to use the mark button on the layout to actually undertake that task. So what we need to do is go to the Java and we'll just put the basics in to get an on-click listener set up for that particular button. Okay, so I've added an object of the button. I've associated that with the view in the layout, and I've set an on-click listener for the button. So in terms of the code for the marker, we've actually already added some of this code, which was actually installed in the in this activity by default when we set up the max activity. Remember, we actually put this marker in it, Sydney. So I can just really take a shortcut and just copy some of this code in, and then we'll just modify it to our purpose. So let's go and put this into the on-click listener. So here you can see two of the components we need for in order to actually place the marker. What we need to do is actually obtain a latitude and longitude values from our location itself, and those are then added to the marker. You can see here that we used a default of Sydney, and the latitude and longitude of Sydney was entered in here. So I'm just going to modify this to our own specific needs. Obviously we don't want Sydney, we just want our own location in here. So I'm going to call this location, and this will be my latitude, and this will be my longitude. Okay, so and what we need to do is set this value here to my location, and I'm going to change this text for the marker to simply my location. Okay, so we'll just get rid of these errors here. So just need to set up some objects at the top here for the longitude and latitude. These are double values, so it'd be a double my latitude, and I'm just going to set this initially to null, and the same again here, double my longitude, and so that equals to null as well. Okay, so let's just go down to this code here again. You can see here that's got rid of the initial errors, but we need to get a latitude and longitude from our position on the map. What we'll do now is just break away and look at some strategies for getting those values. We need to get a longitude and latitude in order for the marker to work. Prior to API 24, that was very easy progress using the On My Location Change Listener, and this was part of the Google Maps interface. We didn't even need to set up a location manager or a location service. The problem we have now is that that interface has now been deprecated. The recommendation is to use the FusedLocationProviderAPI, and that's what we're going to look at doing now. So let's get back to the programming. Okay, so first of all I want to set some objects for the Google API client. So all we want to do is set up an object for the Google API client, and I set up an object for the location request, and we'll go on to add the specific code to build those. So just underneath the map fragment here, I'm just going to build the API client. Okay, so this is fairly standard code for a builder. What I've done, I said I'm going to build an API client for the location services API. I'm going to add some connection callback methods which are needed in order to establish and remove the location listener, and also some callback methods as well for when and if the connections have failed. You can see it's throwing some errors here. What we're going to do is have to get the activity or the class to implement these specific methods. So what we're looking for is to make the maps app to implement the methods, and you see it's now prompting us to add the unimplemented methods, which is the onconnected and on connection suspended override methods. So these have been added now. Let's pop back up to the top here. You can see still another error here. It's a similar thing here. We need to get the class to implement the methods itself, and it's going to add the unimplemented methods. Okay, so that's the API client builder done. We'll review this at the end of the tutorial. What I need to do now is go on and do a similar thing for the location request. Okay, so what I've done here is just set some basic location request parameters to really balance the power and accuracy, the frequency of the updates. So the more often we acquire updates to the location, the more power we're going to use. We also can define the type of device or sensor used to actually go and get the location itself. So what I've done here, I've set the interval to 15 seconds to get the location. I've set the fastest interval to 5 seconds because what the FusedLocation API can do is steal a location from another application if that's available, and because that consumes no power, we can do that much quicker. What I've done here is set the priority to the highest accuracy. This will use the GPS. Now the reason I've done this is that we use the emulator to test this particular tutorial, and it seems like the emulator will only work when we select this parameter. On a real device though, you will set this priority to balance power accuracy. So I've just put a comment in there just to remind anybody in this tutorial that that is a better way to set things. I'll just get rid of this error. I've typed this here. We don't need a context there, so that actually just gets rid of that particular problem. Okay, so the only other thing I want to add is a location listener. So what we'll do, we'll just get the activity to or we'll just implement that in the class itself. So I'm just going to manually type this in. So it's a location listener, and this will throw an error out as well because we need to add implement that particular method. So let's just implement that method. So it's an on location changed method. That's what we're going to add. So this is what happens when we change the location. We'll do something to update the longitude and latitude. So let's just add this in here. So essentially what we've done now is just created our framework for our FusedLocation API. We've got everything in place now to go on and fill these particular methods in. So it's just worth a little review to see what we've actually done here. What I did, I set up the button for the marker, which we set up here. So the mark button, what we established was that it's a straightforward piece of code to add the marker, but what we do need is a latitude and longitude, which we don't have at this point in time. With the latest techniques, we need to use the FusedLocation API. So what I did is set up the framework to actually do that. So we needed to implement some methods here. So there was the callback methods. and the onConnectionFailed method, and a location listener. So we built the Google API with this set of code here. This just tells the Google API that it's actually going to use the location services, and we define which callback methods we want to add in. Now this is a very standard piece of code which is well documented on the Android developers website. We then need to just set up some basic parameters to establish the frequency and the type of sensor we're going to be used to get the location data itself. Set up the GPS here, the high accuracy, because we're using the emulator, and this is the only parameter that works with the emulator. On the real device, we will try and balance the power and accuracy against the GPS and using the Wi-Fi and other systems which use less power but are less accurate. So when we did these elements in, we needed to implement some methods, and the methods we've implemented are down the bottom here. So we need to do something when we connect our API clients. We need to do extra tasks when that connection is suspended or failed, and we need to update our longitude and latitude when the location actually changes. So that's basically it. What we'll do in the next tutorial is go on and fill in these methods themselves. So catch you in the next one. Bye for now. Remember to like, share and subscribe if you found this tutorial set useful, and all the source code and project files are available for download from my website. Thank you.